Back in the 60s, Eastside High was actually one of the most successful schools in Paterson, New Jersey. Joe Clark was a superstar teacher there, and his students absolutely adored him because he was kind, but he also knew how to make learning fun through a little healthy competition. But things went south one morning when a fellow teacher, Frank, told Joe that the union board was holding a secret meeting without him. Joe didn't take that sitting down. He stormed into the meeting and lit everyone up for being too scared to push for real reform. Fed up with Joe's difficult attitude, the board decided to ship him off to another school. Fast forward 20 years, and Eastside High has turned into a total war zone. It's been labeled a cauldron of violence. The buildings are wrecked, and the hallways are run by gangs. The students have no respect for authority. They're constantly fighting and even beating up teachers who try to step in. Drugs and weapons are being dealt like candy, and most of the kids can't even pass a basic skills test. This is a PR nightmare for Mayor Botman. If the state takes over the school, he's definitely losing the next election. Frank, who is now the school superintendent, realizes there's only one man crazy enough to fix this: Joe Clark.
Joe initially turns him down, knowing the mayor is only looking out for his own skin. But Frank hits him where it hurts, telling him that for all his crazy Joe talk, he hasn't actually made a real difference yet. So the next day, Joe shows up at Eastside as the new principal. He holds a staff meeting and immediately makes it clear that he's running a dictatorship. He's the only one allowed to speak. He demands a list of every troublemaker in the school and tells the custodian to start scrubbing the graffiti, using students in detention as free labor. He demotes the English teacher, puts guards in the hallways, and tells the staff they have one mission: get the students ready for the standardized test. They need a 75% pass rate, which is a huge ask, considering they're currently sitting at less than 40%. During an assembly, Joe puts all the troublemakers on stage. He bumps into a student named Kanisha, who actually remembers him from her elementary school days. Joe gets on stage and demands silence, but the kids just laugh at him. Seeing them as a lost cause, Joe expels all 300 troublemakers on the spot to save the other 2,700 kids. This move stuns the remaining students into silence, especially when he warns them they're next if they don't get their acts together. That afternoon, Joe faces a room full of angry parents. One mother, Liana, is furious, but Joe shuts her down with a powerful speech about how a few bad apples were spoiling the whole basket. He wins over almost everyone in the room. The next day, a kid named Sams, who was one of the ones expelled, is waiting for him. He claims he didn't do anything wrong, but Joe knows he's lying. He takes the kid up to the roof and gives him a brutal reality check, telling him if he wants to die on drugs so badly, he should just jump. Sams breaks down in a wave of desperation, promising to change, and Joe decides to give him one last chance. But in Joe's school, mercy is always balanced by absolute control. During lunch, Joe patrols the cafeteria with a critical eye. He praises Ray for wearing a suit to set an example, but his mood turns dark when he catches a group of boys harassing a girl. He publicly shames them, attacking their thug clothing as a sign of a failing character. The tension reaches a breaking point when Joe demands everyone stand for the school song. When Darnell, an English teacher, bends over to pick up trash during the anthem, Joe views it as a calculated act of defiance and sends him to the office for disrespecting the rules. You learn the lyrics and you stand tall, no exceptions. The day ends in a clash with Mrs. Elliott, the music teacher. She wants the students to focus on a Mozart concert in New York, but Joe remains unmoved. He doesn't care about the beauty of Mozart. He is obsessed with the upcoming test. For Joe, the only music that matters is the sound of rising scores. When Mrs. Elliott stands her ground, Joe's patience snaps. He fires her on the spot and summarily cancels the Mozart concert, leaving the pianist, Mrs. Powers, to pick up the pieces of the class. His war on dissent doesn't stop there. Following another explosive argument, Joe suspends Darnell, purging the faculty of anyone who questions his authority. Vice Principal Joan attempts to bridge the gap, urging him to see the human cost of his crusade. But Joe is indifferent. He isn't looking for understanding. He's looking for results. As practice test day arrives, his anxiety reaches a fever pitch, and he dispatches Joan to the board to retrieve the scores personally, unable to wait even a moment longer for the verdict on his methods. However, the illusion of control is shattered when chaos erupts in the cafeteria. An expelled student sneaks back into the building, lunging at Ray with a knife. Shaken by the breach of security and desperate to keep the animals out, Joe makes a radical, dangerous decision. He orders every single exit door in the school to be chained and locked from the inside. Joe's relentless exterior finally cracks when he finds Kanisha, one of his brightest students, in tears. Her mother is drowning in the grip of addiction and is ready to surrender her daughter to foster care. In a rare display of raw empathy, Joe and Joan visit the home. The mother is honest. She is overwhelmed and struggling to stay clean, and the weight of motherhood has become too heavy to bear. Joe doesn't offer a lecture, he offers a lifeline. He promises to help the mother secure a better job and a more stable home, provided she keeps Kanisha under her roof and committed to her education. It's a moment that reveals Joe's true motivation, a desperate, often misguided love for his students' futures.
However, the outside world is closing in. The news of the chained fire exits leaks to the press, and Leona seizes the opportunity to file a formal complaint that threatens Joe's career. Even his friend Frank turns on him, delivering a stinging reality check. He warns Joe that his ego is alienating his allies, just as it destroyed his marriage. Under immense pressure, Joe is forced to swallow his pride. He reinstates Darnell and attempts to mend fences with the faculty he bullied. But as the political walls close in, the peace feels fragile and temporary.
The fire chief shows up with the press to inspect the doors, but Joe literally chases him off with a baseball bat. To Joe's disappointment, Wright comes by to say goodbye. He's dropping out. Later, Joe catches Sams and his crew singing a beautiful, soulful version of the school song in the bathroom. He's shocked and finds out Mrs. Powers taught it to them. He tells her to teach that version to the whole school immediately. The practice test results finally arrive, and they're a disaster, only 33%. Joe calls a meeting in the gym and blames the teachers for being inefficient. He institutes a massive tutoring program and Saturday classes. He tells the teachers to visit every student's house to get the parents involved. Over the next few weeks, everyone is working around the clock. But Leona and the fire chief take their grievances directly to the mayor. Political treachery enters the fray as Mayor Botman strikes a backroom deal with Leona. He will fire Joe in exchange for her campaign support. The plan is cold and calculated. He intends to wait until the high-stakes testing is over, then arrest Joe for the illegal chains. However, the walls have ears. A board attorney overhears the conspiracy and warns Joe that the trap is being set. In response, Joe implements Code 10, a high-stakes shell game of school security. Guards are stationed to watch for the fire chief, ready to signal teachers to vanish the chains at a moment's notice. It is a brilliant, if paranoid, defensive maneuver. Yet, as the external pressure mounts, Joe's internal leadership begins to crumble. When Joan attempts to show him the genuine academic progress they've made, Joe's ego blinds him. He is too obsessed with his own war to acknowledge his partner's success. The breaking point arrives not from the mayor, but from within. Joan, the one person who stood by him, finally snaps. She demands a transfer, delivering a blistering critique that hits Joe harder than any political threat. She calls him a windbag and a bully who only targets those without the power to strike back. The only reason this school is still standing isn't because of your ego. It's because the teachers actually care about these kids. You're just the one holding the bat. Her departure leaves Joe truly isolated, forced to realize that in his quest to save the school, he may have lost the very people making the rescue possible. The following morning, Joe finally hands Joan her transfer papers, seemingly accepting her resignation. However, he immediately gathers the student body for a powerful, raw assembly. He confronts their bottom-of-the-barrel reputation head-on, challenging them to use the upcoming exam to prove the world wrong and reclaim their dignity. In a surprising display of humility, he publicly credits Joan for the school's transformation. Moved by a soulful, unified rendition of Lean on Me led by Mrs. Powers, Joan realizes her work isn't done and decides to stay. As the day of the high-stakes test arrives, a newfound sense of confidence fills the hallways. But the political walls are closing in. Liana, determined to end Joe's career regardless of the student's success, secures a court order for his immediate arrest. Even as the authorities move in, Joe's focus remains on his students. He takes a quiet moment to comfort a pregnant Kanisha, promising her that they will find a way through the crisis together. His reign is ending just as his mission is finally succeeding. The tension finally boils over as the fire chief and police storm the school building. Joe attempts to trigger his Code 10 deception, but the chief reveals he has the entire illegal operation on tape this time. In a stunning fall from grace, Joe is hauled away in handcuffs, leaving a devastated Joan to manage the wreckage of the school. That night, the battleground shifts to the school board meeting. Liana is mid-speech attempting to cement Joe's legacy as a failure when a low roar begins to shake the building. The entire student body has arrived in force, surrounding the venue in a massive, unified demonstration to demand Joe's immediate release. Terrified by the prospect of a riot, the mayor is forced to ask his own prisoner for help. Joe agrees to disperse the crowd, not for the mayor's sake, but to protect the students from harm. When he steps outside, he finds Liana attempting to pacify the mob, but the kids have found their power. They shout her down, refusing to hear a word from the woman who tried to destroy their mentor. As Joe begins to urge the students to respect the law and go home, Joan bursts through the doors, waving the final test results in the air. The silence that follows is broken by the best possible news. The students didn't just pass, they crushed it. Their victory is total, validating Joe's radical methods with the only metric the world can no longer ignore.
As the school erupts in celebration, Joe tells the mayor and the state to go to hell. He gets to keep his job, and the movie ends with a beautiful graduation ceremony where Joe has a personal, caring word for every single student.
If you enjoyed today's recap, make sure to smash that like button and share this video with your friends. For more mind-bending movie recaps and deep dives into the world of cinema, don't forget to subscribe to Cinema Dive X Recaps and turn on all notifications so you never miss an upload.